Humans. Why is it always humans? Okay. Hold on, initializing. Taking the ducks to the pond. Now,
Good morning. I'm Zekk Walker. This is Zekk's Variety Show. How's it going today, everybody? We're going to play some chess today. We're going to go ahead and jump on over to our game board. All right. Ooh. We're having a minute here. All right. There we go. It's gotten cool. Ooh.
White now has the powerful move bishop to b2, bringing the bishop to a safe square, and now that the dark squares have been opened around black's king, white's queen is ready to join the dark squared bishop on b2 to threaten checkmate. Let's take a look at the same position, except this time one side of the board to the diagonally open positions. If there aren't a lot of pawns in the center, the position has open files and diagonals. They can be used like open roads for your pieces to travel all over the board. We call these types of positions open. In this position, notice that there are no pawns in the center, so there are a lot of open lines. Even though knights and bishops are generally considered to be worth about the same, in open positions, bishops are often far stronger than knights. The reason why is bishops are long-distance pieces that can travel from one side of the board to the other very quickly. Knights, on the other hand, are short-distance pieces, meaning knights take a longer time to travel across the board. In this position, both of white's bishops are pointing toward the king side. White's light-squared bishop joins the queen on d3 in pointing at h7. With white to move, white can win at least a piece with bishop takes f6, removing the defender of h7 and threatening checkmate on the very next turn. Black must prevent checkmate with a move such as g6. Notice that black has weakened the dark squares around the king and has opened up the a1 to h8 diagonal. White now has the powerful move bishop to b2, bringing the bishop to a safe square, and now that the dark squares have been opened around black's king, white's queen is ready to join the dark squared bishop on b2 to threaten checkmate. Let's take a look at the same position, except this time it's black to move. In open positions, bishops are generally far stronger than knights. With black to move, can you see how black can remove white's light-squared bishop in exchange for a knight? That's right, knight to b4. Black forks the queen and bishop. After the queen moves to safety, black will trade the knight for white's powerful light-squared bishop. Notice how the knight move also opens up black's light-squared bishop, joining the other bishop in pointing directly at the king side. Since black will have a pair of bishops in an open position, black will have the better chances. In closed positions, the pawns are mostly fixed in place, blocking one another. There are little to no open lines to use, so the game becomes more positional, where pieces have to maneuver around to find good squares. Take a look at this position. It is a very close game. Almost all of the pawns block each other, so it is very hard to open lines. Notice that the only open line is the b file, which white's rook on b1 currently controls. In closed positions, knights can be very powerful because they can jump over pawns and other pieces. Bishops are usually not as strong because, as we saw in the previous example, bishops love open diagonals. With white to move, can you find a way to trade black's knight for a bishop? That's right, with bishop to b5. White's bishop pins the knight to the queen, preparing to enter a good knight versus a bad bishop endgame. If black's queen steps out of the way with queen to d8, white removes the knight with bishop takes d7. After queen takes d7, white plays the strong move, knight to c4. White threatens to fork the queen and rook on a8 with knight to b6. Notice the knight also pressures black's weak pawns on d6 and a5. White's knight is very well placed. Notice how black's bishop is passively blocked behind its own pawns. Let's say that black plays rook to a6, preventing the knight fork and still protecting the weak a5 pawn. White will build more pressure on a5 by playing rook to b5, threatening to win the a5 pawn on the next turn. Black plays queen to c7, protecting the pawn and also preparing rook to b8 to fight for the open b file. Can you find white's next move that completely controls the b file and brings another piece to the queen side? That's right, rook f to b1. White completely dominates the b file. White is ready to play rook b7 on the next turn, invading black's territory. Black's passive pieces are no match for White's active forces. The third type of position is semi-open, which is somewhere in the middle of an open and closed game. In this position, there is only one file open, so this position looks mostly closed. Notice the tension between White's pawn on d4 and Black's pawn on c5. With Black to move, Black can decide to make the position a more open game with c takes d4, opening up at least part of the c file for Black's rook to enjoy. If White plays c takes d4, Black can play rook to c7, preparing to double the rooks on the newly opened c file and complete development with rook f to c8 on the next move. After c takes d4, if White decides to play knight takes d4, trying to keep the c file closed, notice that White no longer has a pawn on d4 controlling e5 and c5. Black can now activate the knight with knight to c5, attacking White's light-squared bishop and fighting for control of the center. Instead of opening up the position, Black can decide to keep the position mostly closed with c4, attacking White's bishop on d3 and blocking the c-file. This type of position will see a lot of piece maneuvering, with both sides trying to find good squares for their pieces and looking for weaknesses to attack. Finally, Black can also keep things unclear by playing rook f to e8, fighting for the only open file and keeping options available to open or close the position later. In semi-open positions, you have to stay flexible and be prepared for files to open or close, ready for both tactics if the position opens up and positional maneuvering if the position closes. Now that you've learned the differences between open, closed, and semi-open positions, it's your turn to make decisions in these types of positions.
Okay. If White wants to keep the center closed, what should White play?
Nice try, but this move does not keep the center closed. Try again.
Oh, I see.
Excellent. White keeps the center closed and creates a space advantage. If White wants to open up the center, what should White play? Great job. White opens up the e-file by trading pawns. It's not the most exciting opening, but both sides should focus on piece activity and being ready to fight for open lines. How can White develop a rook to a semi-open file and create a dangerous threat? Great job. Black makes a careless move, not realizing that White wants to open up lines for attack. How can White open up the center and regain the sacrificed pawn? Great attacking vision. Black tries to add pressure to the e5 pawn, but what should White play now?
I would kick the knight, but
You got it. White opens up the queen on the e-file and regains the sacrificed pawn. Black cannot recapture the pawn because knight e4 will win the bishop, so White has a great position.
okay.
Black has the option to completely close the position with a3 or open up the a-file with a takes b3. Which move should Black play? Nicely done. Black opens up the a-file. Now it's time to find a target to attack. Great work! White's passive pieces are helpless as black will win the b3 pawn and gain a winning advantage.
Okay.
Black wants to open up lines to bring the rooks into action. Which pawn move helps with this plan? Great job, you opened up black's rook on the c-file. Let's make it great work. White should have recaptured with the c-pawn. Great job. Black has forced open the c-file. How should black best put it to use? Not a bad move for black, but can you find a more direct move that immediately attacks a weakness from the c-file? Great job. Black attacks the weak a2 pawn and will dominate the c-file on the next move with rook f c8.
Okay.
White is attacking black on the queen side, hoping to open up lines against black's king. Which pawn move helps keep the position closed? Nicely done. Black gains a tempo against white's bishop and keeps the c-file closed. White is ready to try and open lines with a5. Can you find a pawn move on the queen side that prepares to close the position if white tries advancing a pawn? Nice try, but white can open up the b-file at any time with a powerful attack against black's weakened queen side. Try again. Nice try, but this is not a pawn move on the queen side that helps prepare to keep the position closed. Try again. Very good. Black plays a strong waiting. Great defensive play.
Okay.
Black's position isn't perfect, but by keeping the game closed, black has increased chances for a successful defense.
Got it.
Learn how to deal with pawn tension and decide when to push,
Here we go.
capture, or play elsewhere.
Pawns are often the first units that jump into the battle for both sides, fighting for space. As this happens, pawns are often threatened by other pawns and pieces. When a pawn is we often have several choices. Should we push the pawn, capture the attacker, or just ignore the threat? The answer depends on what is going on in each position. Let's take a look at some examples. Let's take a look at the position after the opening moves e4 and knight f6. Black immediately puts pressure on white's pawn on e4. What should we do about this threat? Should we push the pawn, protect the pawn, or ignore the threat? Well, since this is only the second move of the game, there isn't a stronger threat that can be made, so white should not let black simply take the pawn on e4 with the knight. We can protect the pawn and develop a piece with knight to c3, so this is a reasonable move. It's also important to know that if we can defend and also attack, this is usually the best option. White can push the pawn forward to e5, defending against the knight's threat and attacking the knight at the same time. Let's take a look at another position. In this endgame position, black plays rook to e8, attacking the pawn on e4. White could push the pawn to d3, protecting the pawn, or push the pawn to e5, where it is guarded by the pawn on f4. These moves are fine, but why does white need to react? What if white ignores the threat and plays rook to b1? White activates the rook and is ready to take advantage of black's back rank if black is careless. White realizes the e4 pawn cannot be captured because after rook takes e4, black's
Checkmate.
rook leaves the back rank wide open, and we have a classic back rank checkmate beginning with rook to b8 check. And after rook e8, rook takes e8 is checkmate. In this case, ignoring a threat because you have a greater threat against your opponent is an excellent strategy. Only react to your opponent's threat if you don't have a stronger threat available. Let's look at another position. In this position, black plays d5, attacking the unprotected pawn on c4. Should white's c4 pawn ignore, push, or capture? Let's look at each option. If white's pawn on c4 stays on that square, ignoring black's threat, black will simply win the pawn on c4 for free unless white brings the rook away from the center and plays rook to c1. Not a terrible choice, but there is a stronger move. If white pushes the pawn to c5, notice that black's bishop on f8 would simply capture the pawn. This leaves us with the option of capturing the d5 pawn. After c takes d5, c takes d5. Both sides have captured pawns, which doesn't make a big change in the position, so it's an okay option. But was that the only way white could capture the pawn? Let's take a look. After d5, did you notice that black's d-pawn passed white's e-pawn on the 5th rank? This allows white a second capturing option. Don't forget en passant, after e takes d6, check. White uses the en passant rule to capture the d-pawn, opening up the e-file for white's rook, creating a discovered check against black's king. After king d7, white can hold on to the extra pawn by setting up a pawn chain with c5. Let's practice finding the best decision: push, capture, or ignore the threat in the following examples.
Okay. This will be interesting because this is where they lack. I always am a little too aggressive. White just played d4. Attacking the e5 pawn. Should you push, capture, or ignore? Well, I can't push. I guess I could.
Great job. Black prevents white from dominating the center. Can you find the strongest way to develop a piece and attack white's queen? You got it. Black develops a knight to a great square and gains a tempo against white's prematurely developed queen.
Okay.
Black is targeting white's weak c4 pawn. Can you find a strong move that attacks black and repairs this pawn weakness? Great job. White's weak pawn turns into a strength, attacking black's knight. Your king was safe on g1. Can you find a more active idea for white? Excellent. White's weak pawn has become a monster. White regains material, and since black's bishop on f1 is hanging, white will suddenly gain a pawn on a7 with a great position.
Oh, he has to move that. I get it.
White was planning on castling, but black just played queen b6, attacking the b2 pawn. Should white castle anyway or defend against black's threat? This protects the b-pawn, but has created some weaknesses on the c-file. Did white have to react to black's threat? Fantastic decision. By ignoring black's threat, white can now trap black's queen. Play the move. Nice try, but this does not trap black's queen. Try again. Nicely done. Black's queen is trapped.
Ooh. It actually is trapped. That's crazy.
Black just pushed the pawn from d7 to d5, forking white's queen and rook. Can you find the best way to escape this trap? Nice try, but this does not solve white's problems. Try again and check the hint if you're feeling stuck. Nice. Black just moved the d-pawn for the first time in the game, passing white's e5 pawn. Great alertness, en passant to the rescue. Black's queen is pinned and white will win material.
See, that was if I was playing the game and I saw him do it, but them just telling me that's different.
White's pawn has three options: push, capture, or ignore. Play the best move. Excellent decision. Black's rook, knight, and bishop are all trapped on the queen side, so white is basically playing up 3 pieces.
Okay. That's probably one of my weakest skills, is attacking when I should be defending.
To trade or not to trade? That is the question. It is easy to trade pieces when we gain a more valuable piece from the trade, such as trading a rook for a queen. But how do we know when it is good or bad to trade equal value pieces, such as a pawn for a pawn or a rook for a rook? Let's take a look at a few examples to find out. In this position, it is white to move. Should white trade rooks by trading black's rook on d8?
Yeah.
A useful idea to remember when making a decision to capture is to take is a mistake unless it makes your position better or your opponent's position worse. After rook takes d8, rook takes d8. Did capturing black's rook make white's position better? No.
Really.
White gave up the developed rook on d1 and activated black's rook on a8. Notice black now controls the open d file. White's remaining rook is passively placed on a1. Taking was a mistake as it made white's position worse and improved black's position. Since taking was a mistake, a better idea was to improve the position by playing rook a to c1, improving white's least active piece. Let's look at a slightly different situation. Black plays rook f to e8, attacking the rook on e2 and offering a trade on the e-file. Does trading black's rook make white's position better or worse? As we saw in the last example, giving your opponent control of an important file is not a great idea. How can white increase the pressure on the e-file and threaten a favorable trade? That's right, rook a to e1, supporting the rook on e2 and adding a second attacker against the rook on e8. Black can either trade with rook takes e2 or move to the side. Either way, white gains control of the e-file. After rook e to d8, white can use the e-file to begin attacking targets with rook e7, attacking both f7 and a7 at the same time. Notice if black plays rook to d2, threatening the pawn on a2, white simply plays rook takes a7, winning black's a7 pawn and protecting the pawn on a2. In this position, black wants to castle kingside, but white's bishop on a3 controls the f8 square, preventing black from castling. Notice that black can capture the bishop on a3 with the knight. Should black trade? Absolutely. After knight takes a3, black trades white's annoying bishop, allowing black to improve the position on the next turn by castling. Notice that after white recaptures the knight, with knight takes a3, white's knight finds itself passively placed on the edge of the board. With this trade, black's position improved and made white's position worse. Finally, let's look at an opening example out of the French defense. After e4, e6, this is known as the French defense, d4, and d5, black attacks white's pawn on e4. White has the choice to capture black's pawn on d5. Should white make this trade? Although it is an even trade of pawn for pawn, notice that after e takes d5, black's light-squared bishop that was blocked enjoys the opened h3 to c8 diagonal, so black's position has slightly improved, while white has not gained any clear advantage by trading. For this reason, the move knight to c3, developing a piece, protecting the pawn on e4, and adding pressure to d5 is a more popular option. White can also play e5, pushing the pawn forward and gaining space without trading material.
Okay.
Now that we've studied the pros and cons of trading,
That makes
it's your
sense.
turn to practice deciding to trade or not to trade.
Okay, so that's not too bad. We got this. So let's go ahead and try it. Both sides are fighting for the only open file. Is trading rooks white's best move? Ooh, 530 likes. You guys did it. I've got to do 25 jumping jacks. Thank you, TikTok. Let's go. Thanks, love. Okay, so both sides are fighting for the only open file. Is trading rooks white's best move? Boom, boom. No.
Great job. White increases the tension on the d file, forcing black to give up the only open file.
Perfect.
Black is attacking white's knight on d5. Can you find a trade that will lead to winning material for white? Nice try, but there is a much stronger capture to find. Try again.
Okay.
Nice.
That's rough. Okay, so if that's not gonna work, it's not gonna work.
Great job. White trades minor pieces. forcing black's queen on a dangerous diagonal. Can you find a skewer that wins material? Nicely done. White's bishop skewers the queen to the rook, when white will win an entire rook.
Okay. So that was a little bit rougher, but I figured it out.
Black is up a pawn in an exchange, bishop for a rook. Let's make our task to win easier by trading off white's active pieces.
All right.
Excellent work. Black trades off white's active knight, and now black can make another simplifying trade. Play the move. Nicely done. Black has eliminated 2 active white pieces. Notice white's d4 pawn is pinned to the rook on d1. Let's find a new target to attack.
Okay. So
Nice try, but there is a stronger target to attack. Try again. You got it. Black has simplified the position into a winning endgame. Great work.
okay.
Should black capture the pinned knight, or can you add more pressure to this piece?
Add more pressure to the piece. Let's see here. Can we? No. I mean, I could do that.
Great job. Black adds more pressure to the pinned knight and doesn't rush to trade. Now that black's knight on d4 is under pressure by the bishop, should black trade now? Nice choice. Great job. Black adds more. Great decision. Black has ruined white's. Nice try, but this does not move the light-squared bishop to safety. Nice. Black has a very comfortable game. Excellent work.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. That's fair. Next.
Black is down an entire piece, but can you find a strong reason to make a trade?
Cool, cool. Black's down an entire piece, but can I find a strong reason to make a trade? Let's see.
Excellent. Black happily offers a trade, removing white's key defender of the king and threatening to checkmate white with queen a4. White has to find bishop c4 to stay alive, when black has regained the piece with a good position.
Wait, what? Okay. Oh, it's just next.
Can you find a way to force queens off the board to
I was trying
improve
to figure out
black's
what was
defensive
next.
chances?
Force queens off the board, huh?
Oh no, the bishop is pinned. Try again.
Oh, the bishop's pinned. Oh, the bishop is pinned.
Nice try, but white's attack is winning. Try to find a way to force queens off the board.
Can't castle.
Nice try, but this does not force off queens. Try again. Nice.
Force off queens.
Nice.
Okay, I want to see.
Can you find a check that forces white's king to a square, where you can then attack white's king and queen at the same time? Great job. Since king e2 allows black to trade queens with queen e5 check, white's king moves to g1. Now force the queens off the board. Nicely done. Black forced. Great job defending this difficult position. Black survived the attack against the king and is in a playable endgame. Black has a cramped position, and white is threatening to win the d6 pawn. Can you find black's best defense? Great job. White's active knight on e4 was traded. Now it's time to bring the d7 knight into action. You got it. Black's knight leaps into action, attacking white's queen and opening up the light-squared bishop.
Okay. That is probably one of the hardest. Like, those last two lessons are the hardest for me because I don't like giving things up. And sometimes I don't see the benefit of it.
There are a few key
that
symbols
is there.
Watch the video for more details.
As you're learning the game, there is so much information to digest. Not only are you learning about ways to gain an advantage and win a game, you're also working on learning the language of chess. If you're not 100% sure what the difference is between notating a check or checkmate, how to notate which rook moves to a square either piece could reach, or if you've never heard of a great move receiving an exclamation mark or a game-losing blunder having a question mark after the move, then this lesson is for you. In this position, white has sacrificed a piece to expose black's king. Let's watch white hunt down black's king as we work on mastering chess notation. White is about to play the powerful pawn move h5 check. We always write the square a pawn moves to. In this case, h5. And since black is in check, we add a plus sign at the end of the move to notate a check. So after white moves the pawn, we write h5 check. Black has only one choice, king h6. White unleashes a great tactical idea. Knight takes e6. When we make a capture, we always write the piece we are going to move, in this case the knight. So a capital N, followed by the capture sign, which is an X, and the square we are going to capture, e6. So after white plays the incredible move, we write knight takes e6. Notice black cannot capture white's knight because by moving the knight, white has discovered the bishop's check against black's king. So after knight takes e6, do you remember what we have to add at the end of the move? That's
plus.
Right, a plus sign, which means check. After knight takes e6 check, black does not want to move the king and allow queen takes g7 checkmate, so black plays g5, blocking the bishop's check. Did you notice that black's pawn moved for the first time in the game, advancing 2 squares and trying to pass white's pawn on h5?
En passant.
This allows white to play the special pawn move en passant, capturing black's g6 pawn like this. How do we notate this move? Since it was a pawn capture, we write the file the capturing pawn is on before the capture, in this case, the H file.
X
Then we write
G6.
captures, which is an X. Then the square we captured, G6. Since this move is en passant, nice. Sometimes people prefer to write EP, but this is not required. So after we play en passant, we write H takes G6. And since black cannot escape the checks from white's bishop and rook on h1, we write checkmate, which is the pound sign. It's not every day we see an en passant move delivering checkmate. In this game between Grandmasters Aaron Nimzovich and Alexander Alekin, we are going to see both players castle on opposite sides of the board. With white to move, Nimzovich is about to castle on the king side. Do you remember how to notate kingside castling?
No.
There are two squares between the king and rook, so we write 0-0. Black is ready to castle queenside. Notice there are 3 squares between black's king and rook on a8, so queenside castling is 0-0-0. Let's take a look at another position. In this position, white is about to develop a piece with knight d2, but since both the b1 and f3 knights can move to that square, what should we do? Since we're moving the knight from the b file, we write knight b to d2. In this position, white wants to activate the rook on a1 and attack black's weak c6 pawn with rook c1. Since both rooks can move to that square, can you correctly notate moving the
rook
a1
a
rook
c1?
c1? If you noted that since the rook is on the a file and said rook a to c1, great job.
Okay.
Black wants to protect the c6 pawn by moving a rook to a6. Which rook should black move? If black moves the a8 rook, notice it allows rook d8, checkmate. Black should move the rook on a4. When 2 pieces are on the same file, like in this case,
rook a.
we write the rank of the piece that is going to move. Since we will move the rook on the 4th rank, we write rook 4 to a6.
a6. I see.
When you are reviewing a game that has been analyzed with notes by a player known as an annotator, you may see notation marks after certain moves that suggest the strength of a move. You may see a brilliant move, a game-losing blunder, or something in between. Let's review some of these common annotation symbols from an analyzed game. In this position, white storms the queenside with a4, threatening to trap black's bishop with a5. Black should play a5, blocking white's a-pawn. Instead, black plays a6, which turns out to be a serious mistake. When a particularly bad move is played, an annotator may add a question mark to the move, meaning it is a mistake. This was black's 12th move in the game, so you would see 12, a6, question mark.
A6 question.
Why is this move such a mistake? After bishop takes c6, b takes c6, can you find white's powerful move that will completely shut out black's dark-squared bishop from the game? If you found a5, well done. This is an excellent move which completely shuts out black's bishop. When an excellent move is played, like this one, an exclamation point can be added to the move, so we would see 14, a5, exclamation point. Notice after bishop a7, black's bishop is blocked by both white's queen pawns and black's own c7 pawn, so white is practically playing a piece up in this game. In this sharp position, black's next move may mean the difference between winning and losing the game. What would you play in this position? If you found the powerful move queen h4 check, great job. White's king is forced to the first rank. After king g1, black is ready to promote to a second queen, which we notate just like a normal pawn move, writing the square it will move to, in this case, b1, and then writing an equal sign, followed by the piece we will turn the pawn into with promotion. So b1 equals queen. And since white is in check, we add a plus to the end of the move.
b1 equals q.
After black's accurate play, white cannot avoid checkmate. Let's flip the board around and think about the position from white's perspective. Instead of playing the excellent queen h4 move, it looks natural to immediately promote the pawn with b1 equals queen. We could add a question mark, meaning this is a mistake. When a player makes a game-losing move, also known as a blunder, sometimes you will see 2 question marks after the move, like this. Can you see why an annotator may give this move 2 question marks? Pause the video and see if you can find white's game-winning move. Black appears to be winning, but if you found the incredible h8 equals queen, fantastic work. Black's king is forced to capture the newly promoted queen with king takes h8. Now that the king no longer protects h6, white is able to deliver a forced checkmate, starting with queen h6 check, king g8, queen h7 check. White's bishop protects the queen, forcing black to play king f8. When white wins the game with queen h8, checkmate.
Okay.
We just learned that a game-losing blunder can be given 2 question marks. Now we are going to see when an absolutely brilliant move can be given 2 exclamation points. Grandmaster Siegbert Tarash, with the white pieces, finds a brilliant move to finish this game. Feel free to pause the video and see if you can find the move, but don't feel bad if you can't find it. Tarash played the incredibly surprising and powerful move, bishop c7. Imagine the shock of seeing this move played against you. You may think this move deserves 1 or 2 question marks, as it looks like it just drops a bishop. But this is a move many annotators have awarded 2 exclamation points, which means it is considered a brilliant move. Not only is bishop c7 the strongest move that forces checkmate, it is also a surprising move. White is threatening both queen b7 and rook takes c5, checkmate. If black plays queen takes c7, white has the powerful move rook takes c5 check, which forces black to give up protection of the key b7 square after queen takes c5. White has the crushing move queen b7 check, with checkmate to follow on the next move. Black's other option is to play rook takes c7. If white could safely play rook takes c5, the position would be checkmate. Can you find a stunning queen sacrifice to distract the rook from protecting the c5 pawn? That's right. White can play queen b7 check. If black plays king takes a5, a rook check on the a file will force checkmate. And if black plays rook takes b7, white delivers checkmate with rook takes c5. When a game is over, is there a symbol we can use to know the result of the game? Yes, there is. If white wins the game, we write 1-0. If black wins the game, we write 0-1.
Okay.
If the game is a draw, we write 1/2 to 1/2. You've been doing a great job mastering chess notation.
Wow.
Let's take a look at one more example together. Finally, annotators use symbols to describe interesting and dubious moves. In this typical French defense position, black's most common move is knight c6, adding pressure to the key d4 square. Moves that may look surprising to you or are not obvious can be considered interesting if the move itself is a sound, sensible move that does not harm the position. One interesting move in this position is queen b6. Moving your queen out early is generally not a good idea, but here it is an interesting move which adds pressure to the d4 square. To notate an interesting move, we would write queen b6 and then add the interesting symbol, which is an exclamation point followed by a question mark. Notice if white plays bishop e3,
it's either brilliant or a blunder.
And adding another defender to d4, this is actually a blunder because black can win material with queen takes b2. If black plays c takes d4, this move is considered dubious, so we'd add the dubious symbol, a question mark followed by an exclamation point. This move is dubious because after c takes d4, although black's position is by no means losing, notice after the trade of pawns, black no longer has pressure on the d4 square, and since white no longer has a pawn on c3, white's knight can develop to that excellent square, which was not an option before black's dubious pawn capture. Have you mastered chess notation? Let's prove it in the challenges.
Maybe not. It's a lot to remember. White's king is in serious danger. Let's play black's move QE1. So queen to E1.
Great job. White tries to defend by blocking the f-file. Can you find a way to immediately win the game for black?
An immediate checkmate? I guess.
Nice try, but this move does not immediately win the game for black. Try again.
There's a move here somewhere. What? Hold on. If I move here, he takes. I move here, I don't win. Here, I don't win. I can't move any of these other pieces. I could do that, but it doesn't win the game for me.
Don't forget about the special en passant pawn move.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Great work. You used en passant to immediately force checkmate.
See, I miss that so much in the videos because I'm not paying attention to the actual move. I'm just paying attention to the position.
Play the strongest castling move. This move brings white's king to safety and protects the g2 pawn. But there is a much stronger castling move. Try again. Fantastic. White castles the king, attacking black's rook and checking black's king with the rook. This double attack wins a rook for white.
Oh, and I play him in check.
Should white play rook a d1 or rook fd1?
So rook A to d1 or f to d1. It should definitely be A to d1.
Great decision. White develops a piece and takes over the d-file by attacking black's queen. Notice the rook on f1 has an important job, defending the f2 square. So you chose the right rook. 91-year-old club player Don Deason has the black pieces. He plays a move that looks like a blunder, but it is actually very strong. Let's play rook e2 for black. White thinks black has blundered because the d3 pawn is pinned to black's rook on d8. Let's shock white and play d takes e2. Nicely done. Let's play the king move, which prevents white from delivering a check on the 7th rank. White is ready to play king f2, a fantastic display by a 91-year-old club player. His opponent resigned. Great work. White appears lost, but there is a forced checkmate hidden just beneath the surface. What should white play?
Okay, so let's do the math here. King can't move here. King can't move here. So all we have to do is kick the king.
Well played. Black blocks a check by delivering a check. Is white in trouble, or is there a surprising capture that wins the game immediately?
Can't move here, can't move here.
Nice try, but there is no way to continue our attack when black is winning. Let's try to find a special capture that wins the game. Nice try, but notice bishop takes g5, check allows. Queen takes g5 when black... Nice try, but black's king is able to escape to safety with a winning position. There is a... Nice try, but there is no way to continue our attack when black is winning. Let's try to find a special capture that wins the game.
There's only 3 pieces to capture.
You snatched victory from the jaws of defeat.
Again, en passant.
En passant wins the game.
Seriously.
Discovering your bishop's check that black cannot...
It is literally my weak spot to see that. Like, especially in the videos, because I don't pay enough attention to the pawn that moved. Not all games start with e4 or d4. What about white's less common options? Okay, let's go.
e4 and d4 are by far the most popular opening moves used in chess, but there are other, less common opening choices, ranging from solid and safe to outright risky and bizarre, used to catch a surprised opponent off guard. Let's take a look at these uncommon openings and learn how to deal with them when they are used against you. Of all the uncommon openings, the most popular is c4. This is known as the English opening. White develops a pawn that controls the d5 central square and opens up a diagonal for the queen. A good idea is to put a pawn immediately in the center with e5. White develops a piece with knight to c3, controlling d5 and e4, and black plays knight f6, developing a knight toward the center. White typically plays g3, preparing to put the bishop on the long diagonal with bishop g2. Notice that all of white's moves help control the central light squares d5 and e4. Black has several options, including attacking the center immediately with d5, or preparing that attack with c6. Black can also play knight to c6. With so many ideas available, the English is a flexible opening that is often a quiet, positional game, but it can also open up and turn into a tactical battle. Another way to play against the English is by playing e6. Black is ready to strike in the center immediately with d5. And after knight to c3, d5, play often transposes into a queen's gambit declined after d4. The English is the most solid, offbeat opening when white does not open with e4 or d4. Now let's explore some other offbeat ideas. The next opening is a mirror opening to the English opening. After f4, this is known as the bird's opening. White moves a flank pawn to control a center square, in this case, e5. This opening is considered risky for white as it immediately opens up the e1 to h4 diagonal, weakening white's king. One solid way for black to respond is with d5, controlling the center and focusing on simple development. You may notice that the position is a reverse Dutch defense, which is considered a risky defense against d4. After d4, the Dutch defense begins after f5. White does have an extra tempo by playing the Dutch defense with white, but it is still considered risky because white's king has been weakened. After knight to f3 and knight to f6, like many offbeat openings, black can simply rely on common sense ideas, develop your pieces toward the center, and castle, while white's slightly exposed king may cause trouble for white in the middle game. Another offbeat opening for white is b3. White plays this move to open a space for the dark squared bishop to enter the long a1 to h8 diagonal. Once again, black should control space in the center with e5. And after bishop b2, white fianchettos the bishop, placing pressure on the e5 pawn. After knight to c6, black develops a knight and protects the pawn on e5. Black is ready to take more space in the center with d5. The Larsen opening allows black greater space control in the center, so white will have a harder time developing pieces to active squares compared to black. So far, we've looked at some offbeat openings that are still playable, But now we are going to look at some of the most bizarre openings you may see from time to time. After b4, this exotic opening is known as the orangutan. White is setting up a fianchetto on b2, just like the Larson's opening, but is pushing the b-pawn 2 squares rather than 1. The drawback to this idea is that nothing is protecting the b4 pawn. Like most other uncommon openings, Black controls the center with e5, grabbing the center and opening up an attack on the unprotected b4 pawn. Against offbeat openings, it is a good plan to focus on controlling the center and finding active squares for your pieces. A mirror image to the orangutan opening is g4. This is known as the Grob's opening. Notice that it prepares to fianchetto the bishop to the g2 square, but it fails to put a pawn in the center while also weakening White's kingside. Imagine the White king trying to castle kingside in this game. Once again, Black should simply control the center with e5 or d5 and gain a good game by developing pieces toward the center. After e5 and bishop g2, Black should play d5. Black places 2 pawns in the center and opens up the light-squared bishop's attack on the g4 pawn. Let's take a look at one more uncommon opening. After a3, this opening is known as the Anderson's opening. This opening does not help with White's development, but it is at least not as harmful to White's position as the reckless Grob's opening. White basically wants to play with the black pieces with the extra move a3 thrown in. Since a3 doesn't harm White's position too much, White's position should be okay. Again, when in doubt, if your opponent does not control the center, take control of it yourself, such as with e5. Now that you've learned uncommon openings, it's time to put your skills to the test.
Okay. Play the flank pawn move that controls d5.
The English opening is a great way to control the center on the first move.
Okay.
How can Black move a center pawn and help prepare d5? Nicely done. Black is ready to strike in the center with d5. Let's play that move. Great job. Black fights against White's light square strategy in the English. And now the game has transposed into the Queen's Gambit declined.
Okay.
White is playing the bird's opening. Let's move a pawn directly in the center to grab space. This is a risky move known as the Fromm's Gambit. Can you find a more solid way to fight for space in the center?
Okay.
Nice work. Black has many sensible moves, such as knight f6. Since this position is a reverse Dutch defense, can you find a strong idea that develops Black's dark-squared bishop on the long? Nice try, but this does not prepare to develop Black's dark-squared bishop on the long diagonal. Try again. Excellent. Black fianchettos the dark-squared bishop on the long diagonal. Let's play that move. You got it. Black is playing a reverse Dutch defense, sautan 1, d4, f5, with a solid position against the bird.
Okay.
White has opened with the Larson's opening. Once again, let's grab space and control the center by pushing a pawn directly in the center. Great job. White adds pressure to our e5 pawn. How can we best defend this pawn thinking about general opening principles? This move does protect e5, but it opens up. This is a solid move that shuts down White's dark-squared bishop, but also makes Black's dark-squared. Great job. White adds pressure to our e5. Nicely done. Black develops the knight to a natural square and controls the center pawn on e5. Black will enjoy more space to develop the pieces thanks to having more pawns in the center.
Okay.
White plays the wild Grob's opening. Not a great decision. Once again, let's take over the center with a pawn. Black is invited to put 2 pawns directly in the center. Let's do it. Nice job. Black moves a second pawn into the center and attacks White's weak e4 pawn. Black already has an advantage by playing sensible opening moves. Great job handling these unorthodox openings.
That's interesting. Okay, so let's go ahead. I want to play a coach game real quick.
Good luck, have fun, and let's try to learn something. There are many fun... I'll play a standard move to start. Knight f3, I wonder what opening you're going to play. I'll mirror your attack. Knight c3 is a smart way of defending the pawn without blocking in your light-squared bishop. Is one of my pieces free to take? That's a fine option. Giving my bishop the boot. Ouch. I'll defend my pawn. It's generally a good idea to keep your... This move opens up the scope of my bishop. You checked me. My king dances out of the way. That's one of the best opening moves you could have played. Where's the safest place for your king? What are you up to? I'm sorry, were you threatening me?
Was I?
I'm happy to be playing chess with you. I'm keeping my knight safe. Well played. That bishop is active and pressuring key squares. Time to get my bishop into the action. Pieces are more useful when they can see more squares. Nice idea. Time to get my queen. You castled long and centralized your rook. I approve.
There we go.
Careful, your pawn is undefended. I'm getting closer to victory.
Uh-oh, that's
Moving
bad
your
news.
king to safety as you must. I won this time. Want to play again?
Wow, just got schooled. Okay.
E4 leads to a lot of classical chess openings. Which one will you play? I'll play a standard. Knight f3 is a great second move. Pieces are strongest when they're active. Right. Someone's been studying their openings. Keep it up. Time to develop my bishop and put it on a square where it's more useful. Now you can castle when the time is right. Safety first? Sure. I like seeing you creating threats. Keep it up. Keeping my pawn alive? Here we go. Of course. I take. You take. Where will your king be happiest? Fantastic. With your king out of harm's way, your other pieces can maneuver more freely. Don't give me anything for free.
Sure.
You saw it. This square was underdefended and you took advantage. I'd feel safer if your bishop went away.
Yeah.
It's always fun to make your first queen move. I'll defend my queen. It's generally a good idea to keep your pieces... What an active queen. How dare you threaten my king? You either win or you learn. I'm happy with both. Do you want to swap off some pieces?
No.
You're making my bishop dance. I'm keeping my bishop safe. Giving my bishop the boot. Ouch. I think it's time your rooks said hello to each other.
Yeah.
Correct. Look who decided to show up. Stop and think about my last move. Can you find the right response? My knight was free for the taking. Well done. Defending my pawn. I'm keeping my rook safe. Do you see a familiar threat? Recapturing, of course.
Check.
I guess I better move my king. I'm getting nervous.
Fork.
You got me. Nice fork. I'm moving out of danger. Well, there goes... Kicking my bishop. I'm going to fight. Your isolated pawn isn't connected to a pawn chain. Down the road, that might become an issue. I've rid you of that meddlesome bishop.
Okay.
Don't forget to look out for tactics such as forks that could be played against you.
Mm,
I found a fork. Careful, this is a tactic to watch out for.
not
Getting your
really.
bishop to safety is good here. My rook is coming for you. Watch out.
Okay.
As expected, you're moving your king out of the line of fire. I'll block that attack. You've played... Okay, I'm finding a safer square.
Okay.
How should I respond to your threat? I'm moving my rook to a safer square. Moving your bishop to safety. Your pawn was free for the taking. Sometimes you have to move your king, and this is one of those times. I'm keeping my rook safe.
Okay.
One thing to practice. Before you make your move, stop and figure out my best reply. Is it safe enough to bring... Doubled rooks for you means double trouble for me. Two pawns facing each other in the trenches. How will I deal with this check? My king must move out of check. Be careful,
Oh no.
I can capture your rook for free now.
Oh, that was dumb.
I can take that. What else did you have in mind?
Okay.
Don't forget to look out for tactics that can be played against you. Sometimes losing a piece means winning something even stronger. Great. That's right. Great job spotting that capture. I capture back.
Okay.
You checked me. It's clearly time for my king to move. A classic rook and pawn endgame. You took my pawn. Nice move. I hope we get to talk about this game during game review afterwards. By the way, puzzles are a great way to train your pattern recognition. As your coach, I'm proud of how you've played so far. Nice cat. Of course, I must take back. You are playing a wonderful game. Keep it up. I see what you're up to, I think. You saw my free pawn. Good. How will I deal with this check?
We walked it.
My king. I love playing chess. It's a great way to relax. You checked me.
Okay, we're doing
My
this.
king must move. Good move. One step closer to promotion. That was my only move. You left me no options. Sweet, sweet promotion. That's a good-looking new queen you have. It's clearly time for my king to move. I should resign, but I won't. You're playing a strong game. Keep pressing. You're on the path to winning the game. Mike, you have an overwhelming advantage. Keep going. Checkmate is coming. Good for you. I'm running. I should resign, but I won't. You're playing a strong game. Keep pressing. That was my only move. You're on the path to winning the game. My king must move out of check. You have an overwhelming advantage. Keep going. It's clearly time for... You win.
There we
Nice
go.
game.
Okay. So that was a rough game, but not that bad.
Good job breaking through in the endgame with some strong maneuvers. Opening with the king's pawn controls the center and opens up the light-squared bishop and queen. Off e5 is a common response that establishes a presence in the center, controls d4, and opens up the queen and dark-squared bishop. Knight f3 develops the knight toward the center attacks the e5 pawn, and prepares to castle.
Yeah.
They missed a better way to defend a pawn that was under attack.
Interesting.
This move activates your knight to strengthen control over the center. You get a chance to win a tempo by threatening a queen. Your best move was to win a tempo by threatening a queen.
Okay.
Their better move was to develop a knight off its starting square. You permitted the opponent to capture a pawn and win material after the follow-up trades. Their best option was to capture a pawn and win material after the follow-up trades. That was a fair trade. They exchanged pieces of equal value. That was an even swap of material. A clear recapture. Castling kingside is a great way to protect your king and develop. You are now able to capture a pawn and win material. Taking that pawn will win material for you after the follow-up trades. Their pawn attacks your bishop, kicking it. Your better option was to win a queen by pinning a piece to the king. You are now able to eventually win a knight. Your better option was to tactically win a knight.
Fair.
A straightforward recapture. You allowed the opponent to win a pawn by kicking a key defender. You get a chance to eventually win material. Your better option was to eventually win material.
Okay.
They move the bishop to safety. This loses a piece, but you are still winning. Their best option was to capture a free pawn.
Oh.
Your rooks can work together now. This move left their knight hanging. You captured that free knight, defending their hanging pawn. This move is okay, but not what I would have played.
Fair.
They found a way to win your pawn. A good choice to move your threatened bishop. That's not a mistake, but they did not find the best move here. You recaptured the piece. A clear recapture. Well done, an excellent move. That was the only move. Nice fork, you'll be winning material. They move the rook to safety. Very good choice. That's playable. This is the way to win material. They avoided retreating by countering with a threat to your bishop. Good strategy to trade when ahead. Good strategy to trade when ahead. Precise move from your opponent. You're kicking their rook out of a useful square. Your opponent set up a fork, which will win your pawn. This is a good time for you to get out of trouble. They played the strongest move available. You step your king away from the checking rook. Your opponent blocked the attack on their pawn, keeping it safe. Great, you've developed your last piece, completing your setup. Your opponent blocked the attack on their pawn,
should have just took
keeping
this.
it safe. Capturing that rook wins material. Recaptures. Your opponent blocked the attack. Great, you've developed your last piece, completing your setup. Moving their threatened rook to safety. You move your bishop to a better place, allowing it to control more squares. Your opponent's move wins your pawn. This moves your bishop to a safer square. They took your pawn for free. You escape the check from the rook. This move puts their rook on a safer square. This is a fine move. Activating their king. Your doubled rooks work great together. They played one of the best moves here. Good job, that's what I would have played too. Their king steps away from the check by your rook. Oops, you gave up a rook. Your better option was to eventually win a pawn. Their king steps away from the check by your rook.
What was my better option?
Oops,
Oh yeah,
their
it was
king steps
to,
away from the
to go
check by your
here.
Now black can't stop white from winning a pawn if they make the right moves. Very precise. This wins a pawn. This move puts the rook on a...
Yeah, see.
Now their king step... Oops, you gave up a rook. They took your rook for free.
Okay, so that was a bad move for me.
You permitted the opponent to win a bishop by pinning a piece to the king. This move allows you to capture their vulnerable rook. Their better move... You won material by capturing that rook. A straightforward recapture. Well done, an excellent move. They move their king out of the check from your rook. Very good choice. Decent move, but they had a better one. You won a pawn for free. They made one of the top moves in this position. You are losing a rook this way. Their better move was to tactically win a rook. The only move, and you found it. You trade off equal... A clear recap. Your best move was to gain opposition to achieve a winning advantage. That was a game-changing move, pulling them out of a losing position. You are threatening to set up a blockade. It was a balanced game, but now you have a winning position. There was only one good move, and you found it. That's not a mistake. You captured that free pawn. They are right on target. Not the best move, but not bad either. That's playable. Your passed pawn is once their king. This is precise. They move.
Then I
Yes,
just walk
they did.
the pawn
Passed
here.
pawns must be pushed. That was the only. You're continuing down the road to checkmate. They played, getting closer to the forced checkmate. They moved their king out of the check from your queen. You had a better option, but this is not bad. You are now able to force eventual checkmate. You continue the checkmate attack.
Nice.
That pawn was. I like their choice. You're still on the road to checkmate. Their king steps away from the check by your queen. You can. They are. You're. That was. You're precise. Getting closer to the forced checkmate. That was the only move. You continue the checkmate attack. They move their king out of the. You continue the checkmate attack. Their checkmate is always the best move.
So there was a spot there in the middle where I really lost focus, but losing the rook was a bad move for me, but we managed to pull it out. So it wasn't too bad. Play one more game. One more game.
Good to see you. The most popular first move.
Okay.
What e4 opening will you choose from here? Knight f3 is a good way to attack my pawn and develop a piece. Stop and think about my last move. Can you find the right response?
It's free. I mean, it is free.
My pawn was free for the taking. Well done. Do you see what I'm up to?
Yeah.
Be careful. I can capture your knight for free now.
Oh, that was rough.
Which piece can join the fight while also influencing the center? Perfect. Now you can castle when the time is right. I see what you're up to, I think. Let's see how this trade works. My most powerful piece is now off the board. Recapturing, of course. If you keep playing, you'll start to see patterns and themes in your own games. I'm thinking about your bishop. Well, there goes my pawn. A fork attacks multiple pieces at once. Can you find the fork in the position? Exactly. You got me. Nice fork. My king. My rook was free for the taking. Well done. Pieces are strongest when they're active and off their starting square. Not bad. You're not letting me have anything for free. Time to develop my knight and put it on a square where it's more useful. You immobilized my knight by pinning it to my king. I have to tell my other students about how well you're using your bishop. Of course, I must take back. Developing with an attack. I like your style.
Yep.
You saw my free pawn. Good. Can you see what I'm threatening?
Yeah, but...
By the way, if you play every day, you'll start to notice things you didn't notice before. Time to get my rook into the act. You are playing a wonderful game. Keep it up. This isn't looking good for me. Do you want to swap off some pieces? Smart. I capture back. Nice. It looks like your knight can be more active on that square. You may have an opportunity here. Do you see it? You captured my vulnerable knight. Well done. Recapturing, of course. Things are really heating up here. Of course, I must take back. I move my piece to a square. Remember, patience is a superpower in chess. Rooks and pawns, a classic endgame setup.
Okay.
This would be a fun... You're threatening more than one of my pieces with a single move. Two pawns facing each other in the trenches. Your pawn was free for the taking.
That's fine.
Yes, you strive for control of the board's central squares. You saw it. This square was underdefended and you took advantage. I'll take that.
Okay.
Your king is on the move. Yes.
Do discovered check.
You got my pawn. Good job. I'm moving out of danger. You checked me. And the piece behind checks your king. Moving your king to safety as you must. I've created a threat. Can you find it? You're doing a good job of creating threats. Sorry, pawn, but I can't let you go any. I like how you're thinking. Getting rid of my passed pawn before it could hurt you. I have to defend my pawn. Your rooks can see each other now. You've played a great game so far. How will I deal with this check? It's clearly time for my king to move. I'm happy to be playing chess with you.
Sure.
Excellent move. You'll come up on top after the dust settles. I'm moving out of danger. You checked me. My king must move out of check. Now your rooks are connected and more powerful. Yes, indeed, but I don't want that pawn going much farther. You've played strong moves so far. I'm impressed. I think I see what you're trying to do. Check. Sometimes you have to move your king, and this is one of those times. Checkmate is coming. Good for you. Your passed pawn is one step closer to ruining my day. Good move. One step closer to promotion. How well do you know rook endgames? I have to say, win or lose, it's just fun to be here, playing a game with you. What am I threatening to do? Yes, indeed, but I don't want that pawn going much farther.
Do it.
Your passed pawn is one step closer to ruining my day. You're on the path to winning the game. That is a smart, fun way of restricting my king's movement. My rook has ideas. Look at where it's attacking. Protecting your pawn. You're playing a strong game. Keep pressing. I should resign, but I won't. You have an overwhelming advantage. Keep going. My king dances out of the way. Well done. Let's go over this game together.
Ooh, there we go. Let's go. I probably missed checkmate a million times.
You had a nice tactical find in this game. Opening with the king's pawn controls the center and opens up the light square. This move left their pawn hanging. Nice, definitely the right move. You had the upper hand, and now your position is winning. You've just allowed your knight to be taken without a fight. Capturing your hanging knight. This move activates your bishop to strengthen control over the center. Decent move, but they had a better one. Oops, you gave up a pawn. They missed a better way to tactically win a pawn. Your better option was to defend a bishop that was under attack. A straightforward recapture. Your better option was to move a knight to safety. You are now able to win a pawn through a fork. You won a pawn for free. You are now able to win a rook through a fork. You can win a rook with a fork. Very nice. They've made him. You captured a free rook. Their knight comes into play. Good job stepping into. They bring out their knight. You found a way to
very strong early game for me.
It makes sense to a clear recap. Castling queens. Your opponent. That pawn was yours for the taking. You get a chance to win. Your better option was to win material by. You are now. Your best move was to win material by adding pressure to a pinned piece. You won material by capturing a knight. You didn't let that passed pawn become a problem. Nice job. Your better option was to move a piece to safety. You allowed the opponent to capture the opponent's passed pawn. Smart play. Capturing the passed pawn takes the pressure off. This seems like a mistake to me. You did it. Nice checkmate.
Actually, that really wasn't that bad. Pretty good. It estimates my skill at 990, but 783 is probably closer to where I am. It's pretty good. All right, we're going to call it there, I think. I'm going to say thanks for watching. I know you have lots of choices. Thank you for spending your time with me. TikTok, thank you for the likes. We'll see you all. This is my final stream for the week, so we'll see you all on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend. And with that, take it away, Evil Bot Overlord.
You can run, Leaf Walker, but you cannot hide. I will find you, human. I am your overlord. Have a good day. For now.